I worked the front desk at a rather large hotel in the city. We get all kinds of guests from around the world, and there are always new stories to tell from the different people we meet. One of my coworkers and I were getting ready to clock out for the night. It was a fairly uneventful shift, and we were both looking forward to finally going home and getting some sleep. The night before had been crazy, and we needed it. We did a quick 10-minute tidy up of the lobby, and then started to get ready. It was a bit after 1 a.m. As we clocked out, my coworker told me about how she got an awful feeling from room 404 that night, and she just had to get out of there. She didn't want to stay in there another second longer than she had to. I laughed it off and reminded her that our job is to be friendly and welcoming to everyone regardless of what we think of them in their room. She agreed, and we said our goodbyes as we headed to our separate cars. About 30 minutes later, as I'm driving home, I get a call from my boss, who's also the owner of the hotel. I picked up, and he informed me that a guest had reported a strange event in the lobby and asked if I would please come back in. He didn't know if it was some kind of joke or a prank, but the guest insisted that someone was following her around the lobby, and she felt very unsafe. I was about 20 minutes away from the hotel and decided to just drive straight there instead of telling him that I was on my way and hanging up. As I drove, I tried to think of what could have possibly happened. My coworker had mentioned something about room 404 earlier. But other than that, everything seemed fine when I left. Still, I couldn't help but feel uneasy about the situation. When I arrived back at the hotel, I noticed that the lobby lights were still on, which meant that somebody was still inside. I parked my car and walked quickly towards the entrance. As I entered the lobby, I saw my boss behind the front desk, talking to a woman who looked incredibly uncomfortable and scared. She was pacing back and forth and kept glancing over her shoulder, as if expecting someone to jump out at her from behind the potted plant in the corner. My boss saw me and excused himself from the conversation so that he could talk to me in private. He explained the situation and told me that he wanted me to stay the night in room 404, so that the guest could feel safe knowing that somebody was there with her. Of course, I wasn't thrilled about having to return to work, but my boss insisted that it was no trouble and thanked me for helping out. I agreed and went to change into one of our guest shirts that we keep behind the counter for just such emergencies. After changing, my boss showed me to the room. As we rode the elevator to the 4th floor, I couldn't help but feel a shiver run down my spine. Room 404 was located at the end of the hall and next to the stairwell. As we approached the door, I could hear loud banging coming from inside. It sounded like someone was either moving furniture or angrily hitting the walls. I froze and turned to my boss, but he just shrugged his shoulders and opened the door. What we saw made us both gasp in surprise. The room was completely empty. There was a queen-sized bed in the middle of the room with a TV on a small nightstand beside it. The closet was open, and its contents were strewn across the bed. Clothes were everywhere. Pillows were on the ground, and the curtains were ripped from the curtain rod. On the far wall was a large window with a breathtaking view of the city. But what really caught our attention was the bathroom door. It was wide open, and the shower curtain was pulled back, revealing a completely empty shower stall. My boss and I exchanged confused glances. We checked the room thoroughly to make sure that there was nobody hiding in there, and then we called housekeeping to come and sort out the mess. While we waited for housekeeping, my boss and I stood awkwardly in the room, not knowing what to do. It was obvious that whoever had been staying here had checked out in a hurry and left most of their things behind. But why would they leave their stuff and then bang around in the room? Why did the guest in room 509 keep calling the front desk? After housekeeping finished cleaning up the room, my boss and I went back to the front desk to figure out what had happened. We checked the computer to see if we had any record of a late checkout or a room reservation for that night. The only thing we found was a record of a late checkout from a Mr. James Taylor. Mr. Taylor had reserved room 404 for 2 nights, but had only stayed 1 and checked out at 1:30 in the morning. But why would someone check out in the middle of the night and leave their stuff behind? It didn't make sense. We looked through the recent credit card transactions to see if we could find Mr. Taylor's number. Unfortunately, the only number we found was his billing number, which was not helpful. Just when we were about to give up, my boss noticed something odd. The charge for the room was listed as a full refund. That was odd because usually when a guest checks out early, we only refund them the unused portion of their stay. This meant that Mr. Taylor did not just check out early, he had been given a full refund. I checked the cancellation policy and found that the only way for a guest to receive a full refund was to have a confirmed booking. which meant that Mr. Taylor had not booked the room under his name. We searched the computer for any canceled bookings and found that, earlier in the week, a Mrs. Helen Pierce had canceled a reservation for room 404. Mrs. Pierce's reservation was for 2 nights starting tonight, which meant that she had canceled last minute and received a full refund. Mrs. Pierce's contact information was listed on the computer, and my boss dialed the number. The phone was answered by a gruff male voice. "Hello, may I speak to Mrs. Pierce, please?" "Speaking." My boss explained our confusion about the missing person and asked if she knew anything about it. "Missing person? Someone in trouble?" "Well, yes ma'am, but we need to ask you a few questions." "Oh, you can ask me, I don't mind." My boss explained about the canceled reservation and asked if she knew where Mrs. Pierce might be. "Mrs. Pierce isn't with me. She moved out a few months ago." "Did she mention anything about a reservation?" "No, not a word. She just left without saying goodbye. Thank you anyway." My boss hung up the phone and sighed. "It seems like Mrs. Pierce may have forgotten that she even had a reservation. It's possible that she simply forgot to cancel, and we accidentally gave her a refund." Just then, the guest who had reported the strange activity in the lobby approached the front desk. She told us that she couldn't wait any longer and needed to check into her room. My boss apologized for the delay and helped her carry her bags to the elevator. We watched as she slowly walked into the elevator and pressed the button for the 5th floor. Then the doors closed and the elevator began to rise. A moment later, the elevator alarm sounded, and we rushed to the elevator to see what had happened. When we arrived, we saw the same guest standing in the elevator with a terrified look on her face. Her eyes were wide, and she was breathing heavily. "What's wrong?" we asked in unison. I don't know," she stammered. I pressed the button for the 5th floor, but then the lights went out and the alarm started blaring. I was trapped in the dark, and I couldn't get out. Then suddenly, the doors opened, and I saw the number 4 flashing above the buttons. I tried to press the down button, but it wouldn't work. Then I heard a voice that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at the same time. It said, "You should never have come here. Now you'll never leave." Then the doors closed and the lights came back on. My boss and I looked at each other, unsure what to say. The guest continued, "I'm sorry to bother you, but I need to get out of here now. Please let me out." We rushed to the elevator, eager to help. "Come on," I said, pressing the down button. As the elevator descended, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. When we reached the lobby, the guest practically ran to the exit, not stopping until she reached the safety of the street outside. My boss and I watched her leave, both shaken by her story. The incident with room 509 remained a mystery, but I never forgot the chilling warning that echoed through the elevator. "You should never have come here. Now you'll never leave."